Hello, my name is Vic. This is my podcast. Welcome to episode 14 of Vicsplaining and episode 1 of season 2. Great to see you again. So, as you can see, this is my first video podcast, videocast, vlog, whatever you want to call it. I'm adjusting the camera now. For those who are listening to solely audio, you will be quite amiss. But I promise I'll make this accessible to both video and audio. Funny story about this episode. I actually recorded this episode for the first time like a week ago, but it took me like 15 to 30 minutes of recording the full episode and getting comfortable in front of the camera to realize I never hit the record button. So I made sure to do that this time, and I'm hoping that this will be out in a timely manner. So, as for the new video format, I think that there's a lot of pros and cons. One con is that I have this weird thing going on the right side of my face, on the right side of my lip. And now that I mentioned it, you probably won't take your eyes off of it, but I promise you, I'm hoping that what I'm going to talk about is interesting enough that you're not going to care about that for too long. The other thing is that I can't really hide my facial expressions when I talk about certain things. And I like the ambiguity of audio. Like, you kind of just have to imagine how I look saying these things. Um, and I'm really, really bad at poker faces. So we're just gonna see how this works. But like I said in the intro, this is the beginning of season 2. I was trying to wait for a nice round number, preferably ending in a 5, like episode 15, to end the audio journey and then finally go into video. But I'm trying to do this thing where I tackle my OCD head on and just kind of do things when I'm ready to do them. Like, it is actually okay for the first season to only have 13 episodes. It doesn't have to end in a 0 or a 5. Like, nothing bad will happen because I decided to start recording on 14. Actually, 14 is my lucky number. So, I think it'll be fine. Um, Another thing of note, as you can hear from me speaking, is that I'm not going to be editing as many of my filler, like, what are those called? I'm doing it right now. Like, filler sounds, filler, um, like ums and likes and all that kind of stuff. I edit a lot of it, like not all of them out of the audio version, but that's usually what takes the most time with editing, is that I'm editing out all of my regular sentence filler parts and thinking noises, and that can't really be done as seamlessly with video as it is with audio. So fair warning there as well. If you really enjoyed the like clipped audio style, you may not enjoy it for the time like going forward, because I'm not doing it as much now. Also, I'm sorry for the glare. The sun is out, and I'm doing this cool new thing where I actually give a shit about myself and I don't just sit in darkness and, waste away because I think that's what I deserve. Another thing is that you're going to be getting more wood chip cameos now because you can see her. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Come on. Here she is. For those listening on just audio, I have brought up my cat Woodchip to join the party. Say hello, baby. Say hello. You're being awful, you know that? She was just yapping, so I have no idea why she's being weird now. But yeah, so okay, now she's talking in the mic. Hey, baby. So yeah, welcome to the video era. Actually, I'm gonna close I like the light, but I'm gonna close the window a bit just so that glare will be off. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Woodchip. Anyways, so this is one of the benefits of video, is that you're going to see a lot more aspects to my life, my digestion of these topics, things like that. But like I was saying before, I'm trying to do this new thing where I give a shit about myself and my mental and physical health because I recognize that, like, if I don't do it, no one's going to do it. And that might sound like no duh, but like, no, like for real, no one is going to actually give a shit about my mental and physical health but me. And nobody can attest to how poor my mental and physical health is other than myself. So I might as well be invested in it. So I'm getting more sun, I'm going on regular walks. I'm not allowing myself to bed rot or stew or doom scroll or any of those things because, I think doomerism is easy, to be honest with you. I think it's really, really easy. You guys know from previous episodes that I'm very, very anti-doomer, but like I think it's an easy ideology because you don't have to do anything to attempt better. You don't have to do any investment in order to make the world better or to make things, more livable because eventually, if you just accept doom, you get this kind of sense of nihilism that excuses all of your personal involvement in things. I think a good example is when I was in college, there was somebody, not a huge fan of this person, but that's fine. They're not a huge fan of me either. Um, but I told them that I shop on Amazon, and I gave them the kitschy little phrase of like, what is it called? There's no ethical consumption under late stage capitalism. And they were like, that's just a cop out. And that really hit me because it not kinda, it is a cop out. Um, Because why? Yes, no, there's no ethical consumption, but why would I not strive to be as ethical as possible? I'm not saying that we engage in like purity politics or make it seem as if there's a way to exist in this world perfectly. But if you know the harm that doing XYZ action does, why would you not mitigate that harm as much as possible rather than leaning into it and being like, oh, well, none of this matters anyway? It's a bit of a sociopathic philosophy, honestly, to just act as if your actions have no effect on anybody else. And I thank that person, even though I don't agree with them on most anything, and I'm sure they don't agree with me on most anything either. I really thank that person because they really shifted my mental acuity around living ethically and trying to live within your values as much as possible. Okay, so I usually do this thing because it's a bi-weekly podcast. I usually do this thing where I review my weekend. However, it has been a month at this point. It's been over a month at this point since I talked to you guys. So I'm going to just review all of June. I promise I won't be too long because I have a lot of stuff I want to talk to you guys about today. Pride Month. Guys, when do we stop with this weird discourse around Pride Month and around LGBTQ identity in general? Because I know I'm not the first to tell you all, but they hate every single one of us. It's not like they say, oh, well, if you are specifically monogamous, gay or lesbian and in a same-sex relationship and also non-cis, but not non-cis in the way that you're not transitioning. You have to also be transitioning. If you're none of those things, you're safe. Like nobody says that, you know? They really don't like any of us. And don't like is such a soft way of putting it because literally, you know what I think of every time we have these stupid ass pride discord, baity things? Every single time I think of the Pulse shooting. That was the most horrific shooting I have ever heard about or seen in my life. And it was crazy to be online at the time because like at the time outside of Tumblr, my main social media was Facebook. So I got to see the opinions of so many people in my hometown when that shooting occurred in Orlando, Florida. My goodness. I'm telling you, you're going to hear a lot more stuttering from me now that we're, doing live video. Um, it was a really fucked up time for me because if you know anything about me, my best friend, um, he is gay and he occupies a lot of these spaces. Not that I don't, but like specifically for Orlando, Florida, he was living in Orlando at the time. And I remember being so terrified. And I talked to him about it afterward because it was Latin night, like that was the theme of the night. And he had a friend who is Latino who was thinking about having them go to the club that night. And they didn't end up going, a real like butterfly effect situation. Um, but it's just fucked up because it could have happened to any of us. I think also of that shooting in Club Q. Like when I see the victims of those shootings, I see not just myself, but I see people in my community. And so that's why it always irritates me when we have these stupid ass conversations because yes, if we're talking about individual like experiences, I can tell you as a person that is perceived as a cisgender woman, regardless of the fact that I am not a cisgender woman, there are benefits and privileges that I get from occupying that space. I like actual queer people don't clock me as cisgender usually. I mean, unless you're like a TS Madison, Saucy Santana type where like you think I'm not even gonna go there, but like if you're that type of person that's like gender expansive, but you don't talk to like regular queers on a daily basis. And what I mean by that, like I don't want to sound transphobic or sound like exclusionary, but what I mean is like people that just have these conversations. Um what did Saucy Santana say on the podcast the other day? He was saying that like pronouns must be something new. Spoiler alert, they're not. But he said they must be something new because if you look like a boy, you're a boy. If you look like a girl, you're a girl kind of thing. None of this they, them, z, them, all this other kind of stuff. When it's like, maybe that's just the spaces that you occupy. And I can't even say that it's like a black versus white thing either because I know a lot of black and non-white they thems. I know a lot of black and non-white trans people that you would not immediately clock as trans unless you had a serious conversation with them. And this was before 2025, before 2020, before 2015, if you could believe it. Um, I really hate it when people try to make it sound like this is all brand spanking new. But my point remains, if my friend would have went to that Latin night at Pulse, the club, Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, the night of the shooting, and he was killed, which is, I know this is a fucked up thing to think about, but like I'm just doing a thought experiment here. And not even, I don't even have to do a thought experiment because just going with the people who died, are we gonna go down the line and be like, well, this person wasn't actually gay. They identified actually as demisexual and heteroromantic, and also they identified as agender and gender who care? Like, in the eyes of these people who want us dead, we are the great equalizer is necropolitics. I'm going to be so honest with you. Necropolitics is the study of it's opposite of biopolitics. Biopolitics is the Foucauldian idea of who lives and who dies. Necropolitics is who dies and who is set to die and who does not die, basically. And it's like, in the minds of these people, any flavor of queer, death. That's it. Wendy Williams, death to all of them. You making it seem as if like I don't understand why we keep going through these arguments when we see hate crimes occur across the LGBTQ spectrum. I think specifically also of those two women. I don't want to. I don't want to quote it wrong. I'm sorry, you guys have to watch me do a research montage. Okay, okay, I'm not wrong. Okay. So, two women back in 2019, they were on the bus together and they were sitting next to each other and they were obviously um a couple. And these men, this was in London in the UK, and these men wanted them to kiss each other and they refused because, just because we're gay doesn't mean that we're on display for you and your voyeuristic tendencies. They refused and they were beaten bloody by these men. And then I remember because I was easing off of Tumblr at the time because I was really dead off it. I was like, you guys are kind of fucking terrible, and you guys kind of remind me of everything that I hate about myself. I have to be honest with you. That's another conversation. But they refused to kiss and they beat them bloody. And I remember that one of the women from the attack did a Guardian article after this went viral online because so many people were like, this is why lesbians need their specific spaces, which is something that I am not refuting whatsoever. Okay. As a confusing ass bisexual myself, I completely understand. But they were saying this is why, lesbians need their specific spaces because lesbians specifically deal with an oppression that other people cannot understand. Whole time, this lady comes out and is like, I really don't like the narratives that are spun around me and my partner. Homophobia is real, all these things. Also, by the way, we're bisexual. So then it's like you have to narrow the scope more. Maybe you could be like, oh, well, only people who are in a visibly same sex or similar gender relationship. It's just like, why even do all of these hoops and all of these caveats, dude? What is the point other than to gain internet points? What is the actual thought process behind it? Because this person is telling you explicitly that they identify as bisexual and they were still attacked. You know why? Because they don't come up to you and say, hey, are you bisexual? Now, I'm not saying that if one of the bisexual people in the relationship was with somebody of the opposite sex or opposite seeming gender, that they wouldn't have been attacked. That's not at all what I'm saying. I do believe it was homophobia purely that, you know, but it's just like, do you understand that people don't care about these little nuances and micro identities and all these things are so we can communicate with each other, not to bigots. So, me communicating to you that I am non binary and I am bisexual is so that I can communicate my gender identity and my sexuality to people who are ready to receive that information. If I appear going out of the gender role and the expected sexuality of what people perceive me as, so if I am perceived as female, and I am seen doing something that is considered homosexual, i.e., I am doing something either romantic or sexual with another person who's deemed female. I feel like I'm talking to fucking like third graders, but like, and hate sprouts about towards me. That is homophobia, and it's based in the hatred of that act. Yes, it's also based in lesbophobia. However, it's still a crime against a bisexual person. Therefore, that I just don't like, do you think that people who shoot up these clubs and these pride parades and the people who attack queer people en masse, do you think that they go up to them and they're like, by the way, before I attack you, what are your pronouns? Or before I attack you, Do you have a history of dating somebody of the opposite sex, possibly, so that I can validate you a bit more? Even these conversations that are like, um, oh, it's so much easier to be bisexual than it is to be a lesbian or to be gay. Because when you come out as gay or lesbian to your parents, oh, there's no hope for them because, the homophobia is there. But if you're bisexual, there's still a chance that you're going to go about it the right way. That is all anecdotal. All of that is anecdotal. When the reality is, homophobes hate all of us, transphobes hate all of us. It's not just the people who are actually engaging in the acts that they disagree with. It's anyone aligned to the cause. Okay? And so I'm very tired of this stupid fucking discourse. To go into more anecdotal information, not that this, before I say what I'm going to say, I'm not saying it to make it sound like I have it worse than other people because I literally don't, okay? I have so much privilege in this space, it makes me sick to my stomach. And I have to make that disclaimer and I have to say all of that before I make this point, okay? But anecdotally, nearly 5 or 6 years upon me coming out, because I'm 28 now. I came out to my mom when I was 16, okay? So yeah, about 6 years. My mom calls me and says, I really wish you were just a lesbian. And I said, why? And she said, because if you were a lesbian, I could easily just call you my lesbian daughter. And then the conversation ends there. People know exactly, what's happening, where I'm coming from, but you just have to make it complicated. And you have to be bisexual. And that's not to say that bisexual people experience more discrimination than lesbians or than gay people or anything. But what I'm saying is that it really just varies. And when it comes to homophobia or intolerance around queerness, that is across the board. They don't give a shit what the situation is, right? My mom told me that it would be easier for me to be a lesbian because it would be less confusing. That's like Looney Tunes level of like nonsense. But I say this to say that like it's irritating. I mean, not the spaces that I'm in because I love all of my friends and I love all of the people that I occupy space with, but a lot of the spaces that I see online seem to forget that the biggest part about queerness and about Pride Month is living a queer life. Like, yes, I think that the focus when we talk about providing resources and providing community to people, it should be on same sex couples and people who are medically transitioning. The reason being that systemically, these people have been devoid of these resources. Yeah, 100%. I am in complete agreement there. But the conversations that I've seen around like, oh, can your straight boyfriend come to Pride or like are asexuals part of Pride? Are polyamorous people part of Pride? All of these stupid little like caveats and nuances and or of about he him lesbians or all these kind of things. It's like, first off, Pride was a riot. It was not a protest, it was a riot, um, in its conception. And then two, it's like, again, if there is an asexual, polyamorous, he, him lesbian at the Pride Parade and someone decides to attack the Pride Parade, do you think that that person is going to be spared? Because, like, what are we talking about? The only qualifications that you need to occupy a queer space or to be involved in Pride or whatever start and stop with the fact that you associate yourself with the LGBTQ community. And I know that's hard to hear. And I know that's not the TikTok, Twitter, Tumblr ready answer, but that is the reality. There are people in my family that are in same-sex relationships, and I still believe that I am considered, quote unquote, the gayest person in my family because I am so overtly, openly queer and involve myself, like I'm multiple people, myself in the affairs of queer people on a daily basis. Politically, I am queer. Sexually, romantically, etc., I am queer. And I don't think that people need to bring up their rap sheet or their past sexual history or, find three people to vouch for them in order to be involved in these spaces. And I think it's dog shit. And I think it's annoying that I'm 28 now and we've been having the same goddamn conversations since I came out at 16. It's that, and then the discourse around multiple groups in the Middle East, but especially Palestinians. A lot of these conversations around like pink washing. If you don't know what pink washing is, it's basically when somebody accuses a settler colony such as the United States or Israel of apartheid or genocide, and some representative or defendant of the country fires back with, oh, but we have pride parades and we have gay rights. Does Palestine? Does this other obscure area full of brown people? I didn't think so. And that always irritated the fuck out of me because one, they do have gay, queer, and trans people because we are everywhere. But two, maybe they're not able to like talk about their identities at length and have these conversations and have academia dedicated to the many different feelings that they have around their sexuality and genders because you keep bombing the shit out of them and they don't even have the chance to form their identity under those conditions. So people like it, I saw it so much this Pride Month where people were like queer as in free Palestine and people were like queers for Palestine is like chickens for KFC. It's literally not. There are queer people in Palestine. I would bet my entire life savings on it. They're not able to focus on that though because they have to focus on the fact that the median age of the people being killed in the area is 5 years old. Like when you're avoiding like white phosphorus in your food and bombs raining down, you don't really have the time to pick out your pronouns. I'm sorry. And that's a privilege that us Western queers have. And I feel like it's so fucking stupid that we keep going through these conversations around who's more queer than and I'm not even one of those people that doesn't see the annoying things. I'm one of the annoying people. I'm one of the annoying people. I'm a non-binary bisexual who was assigned female at birth. I know I'm fucking annoying. In America, bro. Like I know. But it's like annoyance, complete negation of your queer identity. Like I rather accept every single cisgender heterosexual woman who kisses women when they're drunk into the queer community than negate everybody else's identities. And maybe that's just me. Maybe you are listening to this as a monosexual person or a monogamous person, and you still hold very tightly to this idea of exclusion, and that makes you feel the most validated and that makes you feel the most safe. And I can't fault you on that, okay? With all of the people out here that are irritating and, the amount of nonsense that you've had to do to form your identity and to feel secure in your identity. And then you have people that it feels like they're making a mockery of it. I completely understand where you're coming from. But I do think that you should separate your own personal feelings and projection onto individuals or individual groups of people from the entirety of the space. Because I'm sorry to say, it doesn't matter that I'm getting married to a man and that most people, including Spotify, because I found out, sorry to call you out, Spotify. I found out that if you go on my podcast, they've now forcibly transcribed my podcast, I'm guessing with AI. And even though I fully say my name is Vic, as in VIC, they will translate it because they're hearing a quote unquote feminine voice to Victoria every single time. Not a Toria in sight, but they'll put it there because AI is fucking stupid. Don't get me. I'm not even going to get started on it. I'm not even going to get started on it. I'm going to try to go this whole episode without talking about AI because I screamed about AI so loud yesterday that I gave myself a headache and I went to bed at like 7 p.m. I was so irritated. But that aside, God, it's just like, what was I even talking about? So it's like, I get it. Coming from somebody who is perceived as a cisgender woman, and I benefit a lot from that space. I completely understand this want and this desire to like separate or be like, okay, but you don't get my struggles. You don't understand 100% what I'm going through. Like, I do understand that, but I do also believe that some people have to recognize after a while that it is projection. Your exclusion is based in projection. And I'm speaking on this also as somebody who used to exclude other people because coming to the realization that I was bisexual was one of the most painful things that I ever went through because nobody wants to be bisexual. And what I mean by that is like when I was coming up on Tumblr, trigger warning, um, nobody wanted to say the word bisexual because it felt too slutty. It felt too wrong. It felt too greedy. Everybody either wanted to be pansexual or they wanted to be demisexual, but like with a preference for a certain gender. Like you always had to sanitize it because bisexual is a porn category. Like that, you can't just be bisexual. That's not right. And when I did come to the point where I was comfortable with being bisexual, I became very, very exclusionary. And I was very outwardly rude to asexual people in a way that just was not okay. Like I was really, really nasty to asexual people because I used to identify as asexual and I hated myself from then. So I thought, okay, to get to this point where I can like myself now, I need to hate on my past self. You know what I mean? And it was fucked up, just as it's fucked up now for people to act as if like, oh, these specific people can't claim queerness. And I'm not going to change the world with what I'm saying. I'm probably not even going to change the minds of one singular person who's listening to this podcast. However, it's just like, I need you guys to understand that these intra-community conversations that we have are just that. Usually they're just for Twitter likes and giggles and updoots from other people who are deeply unhealed, and they're not actually like tangible and they're not real and they're not, interesting because it's like what do you gain? What do you gain from excluding people from this space that may be the only time in which they ever feel seen? And also, there's something to be said about the tendency that primarily white Western people have to overcategorize and depend on taxonomy as an extension of neocolonialism. But I digress. That's for another podcast. But yeah, to sum it up, Pride Month was fun. I had a very, very fun time. I would have to guess that out of the 30 days in Pride Month, I think I was sober for 5 of them because I went to so many things. I didn't go to any pride parades because the Pride in Atlanta is in October because it's so hot during June. Same with South Carolina. They're like the weekends are right next to each other. I didn't go to any pride parades, but I went to a lot of drag shows. I went to a lot of gay bar nights. I missed this one pub crawl that I wanted to go to that I felt really bad about. I went to a top surgery benefit. Like I was just in community, like hashtag community in the most buzzword way possible. I was slurping that shit down with a straw. It was excellent. I had a really great time. Um, and yeah, I focused more on being in that space and being around people that give a shit about me rather than arguing with people on TikTok and Tumblr and Twitter. And I think that everybody should take that advice and realize that these conversations, even though they are coming from real people, allegedly, because a lot of the internet is now bots, but even though they're coming from real people, they might be some of the worst people to be around. And the reason that they have all this time to argue with you is because they don't have anybody in their corner in their real lives. So I would just consider that before, engaging further. And that's all I have to say about that. Now, to talk about what I think is probably the biggest occurrence that has happened since I've been away. These ICE raids, bro. What the fuck? Dude, there's so much I can say about ICE. It boggles my mind that the Democrats are doing what they're doing right now, because the Democrats have always been pro-ICE. But now that they realize that their constituents aren't pro-ICE, suddenly they're condemning ICE en masse. When just last year they were pro-ICE and they have voted to increase ICE's budget every single freaking year. It bothers me so bad because I don't think I know the Republicans don't give a shit about undocumented people or undocumented citizens, but the Democrats don't either. And, I would go as far to say that a lot of people don't, even people outside of the two-party system. I don't think they actually care about undocumented people in the way that I need them to care. I'm speaking as a descendant of Haitian immigrants. I'm speaking as a friend of immigrants from all countries, all walks of life, legal and illegal, because who gives a shit? I cannot believe the amount of people that are trying to equate legality with morality. Like, for real. And the other part that really annoys me is how much, like, okay, two things. One, I really hate the fact that so many people associate immigration with Latino identity or being South American or being from Mexico or anything like that, because it's like everyone immigrates. The way that we talk about people that leave countries with more brown people and come to countries with more white people is not the way that we talk about the reverse. But both are immigrating because human beings inherently are nomadic. Okay? I've this is something that's been brewing on my mind for a very, very long time, especially because a lot of my studies around my master's research is about Blackness in the South. How does one become Southern? How do you deem Southernness? Because I've been told by multiple people that because I don't have the twang in my voice, I'm not Southern. Or because I am from South Carolina, but I wasn't born in South Carolina, I'm not Southern. I was born in Virginia. Southern Virginia, if that matters at all, but I've been told that that's not Southern. Or the fact that, like, it's just like so much of my politics is grounded in the South. And it's like, how much song and dance and performance and atoning do I have to do in order to wear the Southern, Medal of Honor? A medal that I didn't even want, by the way, because my ancestors were brought here by force on a boat, but whatever. How much atoning and how much performance and how much formation of my identity do I have to go through in order to become Southern? So all of that wrapped up in the fact that I was literally born here in the United States. I can't even imagine what it's like to be somebody who wasn't born in the United States, consistently hearing bullshit about how they're not American, but you still have to pay American taxes and you still have to feed into the American system, but somehow you're also leeching, but also, you're doing so much for the economy because you're working these different jobs. That's another thing. The Oh my gosh, there's just so much here that I'm like, what is America doing? And I know I ask that all the time, but I really don't think that America has ever, because it was built on chattel slavery, I don't think they ever recovered. I think they just transferred slavery, like they broke slavery up into different things. So, of course, the 13th Amendment. So, a lot of slave labor goes on to prisoners, but also just like the idea that we need immigrants from the southern border specifically because they are going to work the dirty jobs that us clean and proper citizens don't want to do. Whoa, like what? Like it's just like the lack of personhood and the fact that this country can't seem to stop recreating slavery. I don't think that people who immigrate to this country have to toil and starve and suffer in order to make a name here. I really think you should, bitch, why would I care? Why would I give a shit? Come on in. You want to be a part of this shit show? Be my guest. What? I don't know. I sympathize very heavily because the way that Americans are infatuated with this country. And I think a lot about, oh my gosh, I just wrote a paper on her, but Sibahan, I think I'm saying that wrong. I pronounce this one name and I'll put it on the screen if I remember it. But I pronounce it Sibahan, but I'm pretty sure it's not pronounced like that. Hold on. That was embarrassing. Hold on. Yeah, how do you pronounce that name? Yes, okay. Siobhan. Did y'all know that's pronounced Siobhan? I've been saying Sibohan this whole time. And honestly, Sibohan eats. Like, I rather go with that name. But anyway, that person is a scholar and talking about putting like a queer lens on like naturalization and identity with the American empire. And basically, this was back in 2008, but she basically talked about how Americans are groomed into loving their empire. And so your entire identity gets wrapped up in patriotism and the love of your nation. We replicate that on a micro level with our regions. So, for example, I just, waxed poetic about the South. And then within our states, maybe, because I'm from South Carolina, I'm always going to root for the Gamecocks because I have such a strong, hold to this area. But I have no stake over any of this land. We stole land from the natives and then we create this weird infatuation with it that based on borders that mean nothing. So when I moved to Atlanta, I've been here on and off for 10 years. I moved here for school. I moved back permanently about 4 years ago. When I came back, I always have to tell people when I am in different spaces, they ask me where I'm from. I always have to say South Carolina. Even though I've been here on and off for 10 years, I can never say I'm from Atlanta or I'm from Georgia. When I go to other states, this is it's so weird. The way that we talk about migration and immigration and movement in general in this country is so fucked up. But like when I go to other states, like when I visited California and I get in the Uber and the Uber says, "Where are you guys from?" I say I'm from Atlanta because that's where I'm coming from and that's where my residence is. I am a Georgian. But when I'm in Georgia, I'm a South Carolinian. You can never do enough to atone for where you came from. And I moved here because the opportunities are better. Do you know what it's like to have a master's in gender studies in freaking South Carolina, bro? South Carolina at all, but specifically Columbia, South Carolina? There's nothing. At least nothing worth a damn. Why did you get that degree, to be honest with you? I don't want to say that if you're a gender studies major or you're looking into doing gender studies, there's plenty of stuff to do around South Carolina. But what a lot of people don't recognize is that it's a very, very competitive field because when you get a job in gender studies that pays well, why would you let it go? Hello. And people are living longer and people, medicine is advancing. So it's like we're running out of places to go. And I know I have some pull in Atlanta because I've been here on and off for 10 years. I have connections here. I have, all these different conversations going on. And I'm southernly grounded. The things that I talk about and the things that I'm interested in mean things to the South. So I knew I had to stay in the South. I could just fly out to California or New York where gender studies is, flourishing a bit more than these other places. But I knew that for me, for the work that I'm doing and for the work that I discuss, Southernness, specifically Black Southernness, was key to my conversation. And that was what determined me moving from South Carolina to Georgia. And that's normal. It's normal to leave a spot of less economic value to another spot in order to gain more economic value in this system. So it's like you want us to play the capitalism game, but you also don't want people to move to places that are more advantageous for them. And this isn't me, caping for gentrification or caping for pushing out people that were in this. Guys, promise you. I don't live in any kind of high cost housing or, I don't live in a pedestrian only walk area with a Whole Foods and a Starbucks and all this kind of stuff. But I am also open to the idea that I am feeding into gentrification. I could have that conversation, but that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just purely I need to leave this spot because this spot is going to be more advantageous for me and my family. Is that not the basis of what capitalism, and much more importantly, when we're talking about the infatuation with empire, the quote unquote American dream is about? Getting to a better place so that you can be more economically advantageous and have children and then have a family? But when immigrants do it, because they went around the imaginary line that you don't want them to cross, all of a sudden they're freeloaders, they're leeches. Oh my gosh, can you believe that these people are here? These ICE raids are disgusting. I don't care if they were humane. I don't care if they were doing everything in their power to kindly come up to the person and be like, hey, come here, get in the van. That would already be disgusting in itself. The fact that you are still deporting people, let people live their goddamn lives. I have to be honest with you. But the fact that they are upping the ante with the level of dehumanization as if they're like animal control and they're trying to control rabid dogs is so fucking disgusting to me. And the fact that people sit idly by and act as if this is just another fucking Tuesday in America is so sick to me. It makes me sick to my stomach. People don't care about immigrants, whether they don't care about their legal status or anything. They just don't care. They demonize immigration in every way that you can when human beings are inherently nomadic. You're okay with Ashley what's-her-face moving from Idaho to New York City to move into high-income housing and buy up 3 condominiums in fucking Bushwick. Sorry, I meant Flatbush, but both. And becoming a landlord off of their mother's trust fund. That's all fine and dandy for most of the American imagination. But when it comes to, somebody who's trying to look for a better life in America versus the country that they came from, you gotta go about it the legal way. We gotta have paperwork. We gotta have this. We gotta have that. I know so many people with like expired licenses, so many people driving on expired tags. I know so many people. I have a lapsed passport. Like all of this stuff, all of this shit doesn't matter until it's people that you find it easy to demonize. And it's so sick to me. These ICE raids are terrible. They're terrible. And the way that the way the mainstream media was talking about Los Angeles, bro, like it was like a war scene, when it's like, who is bringing the weapons? Who is bringing the tear gas? Who is bringing the tanks? Who is bringing the overt militarization that doesn't need to be seen on the streets? Y'all are bringing it. We're just saying, stop fucking kidnapping the people who are running the grocery store next door. I'm actually not going to allow you to do that. And now the Democrats want to come out with their tail between their legs, being like, these deportations are unconscionable. Fuck you. What? You guys have funded ICE every single year. This plus the whole situation with Zoran Mamdani winning the New York City mayor primary, and the Democrats realizing that people want people on the left wing want left wing candidates. It's so stupid to me. It's just like, no, duh. I get that the whole thing in this country is like corporate interest and super PACs and, doing what is best to please the donors. But it's just like, is it really that shocking that the people who are, because the thing is, okay, yes, the corporations control the country, right? But the leftists control the zeitgeist. The conversations that are going on, I understand everyone's algorithm is different. And, I know from personal experience from scrolling on the feeds of my family members that they don't have feeds similar to mine. Duh. Like, that's how it goes. Your feed is algorithmic based on the things that you interact with. But for the most part, like the majority of people, even if they aren't overtly leftist, they are somewhat liberal. So I would say the mass majority of this country is like center left. I know, and center left is a loaded term because I know that there are Europeans who would consider our center left to be like moderate or pretty right. But I'm saying, like, in general, in the United States, most people are center left, or they don't give a shit enough about politics to even parse out their political identity, right? Even so, we have people who live in bumfuck Republican town chiming in about they them pronouns, and kids shitting in litter boxes in whatever. Yes, they got those talking points from right-wing media, but right-wing media would not be discussing these ideas at length to the point that these people who are not interested in politics are able to regurgitate them if this wasn't a part of the popular zeitgeist. And I can tell you from conversations with kids and looking at kids' content online that the general zeitgeist is left. The leftists have won the culture war. We can pretend that the right wing has the culture war. They don't. Most people don't agree with the shit that is going on right now. They don't agree with Project 2025. That's why so many That's why so many Republicans pretended like they had no idea about the Heritage Foundation or any of this stuff, because they know it's unpopular. What's popular is general liberal leaning left policies, believe it or not. And they know that. But the Democrats have still been funding ICE this whole time because in their minds, and I'm not even saying that liberal is like the most left-leaning ideology, because the idea is that liberalism still feeds into capitalism, free market capitalism. However, what I'm saying is that, like, most people, when it comes to most social issues, they still believe, and maybe this is just me high on copium, or hopium as some call it, but I do believe that most people are generally good. Maybe they're just a little too passive aggressive to understand when they have more pull in things than they might think that they do. But most people are generally good and most people are generally liberal. Even if they're not out here marching. That's another thing. The No Kings protest. The big lib protest. Yeah, most of the people that were out there were holding signs that were like, hands off NATO, and, death of democracy and all this other bullshit that's like, what are you guys talking about? But at the same time, inherently, most people, the right wing is unpopular. They know that they're unpopular. And the Democrats are falling behind. They won't just read the writing on the wall and realize that, actually people want you to be more oppositional. I didn't say divisive, but you do need to be an oppositional party. And there are certain conversations that occur primarily around capitalism and primarily around the maintenance of what a good or proper citizen is in the United States that make the Democrats look indistinguishable from the Republicans in the right wing. And they need to be distinguished. A big thing that was occurring during the election was the whole people who are voting for Kamala Harris versus people who are voting third party or people who aren't voting at all. And a lot of the conversations were like, oh, well, I'm not voting for Kamala Harris because the Democrats and the Republicans are the exact same. I don't believe that they are the exact same, but I do understand that they have the same corporate interest. And it is the fault of the Democratic Party that they don't distinguish themselves more from the Republican Party. That's not the fault of the voters. So if you're saying, if I'm telling you my pronouns are they, them, and the Republicans are saying this is a delusional woman, and the Democrats are saying please respect their pronouns, but both of you are going to bomb Yemen at the end of the day. And both of you are going to continue to protect billionaires. That is what people mean when they say that there's no real distinction between the two parties. And it is up to the Democrat establishment to risk their their billionaire donors and be a little more risky because the people want that. If you want I keep saying Republican, if you want the Democratic Party to last past 2028, that is what they need to do. They need to make it very, very clear what the difference is, because right now, fiscally, geopolitically, and especially around immigration, y'all are looking the exact same. For so many people on the left to now be not on the left in the Democratic Party to now be like, these ICE raids are just disgusting. Can you believe this? Like, they were not signing bill after bill after bill after bill to continue funding the further escalation and militarization of this Gestapo is so corny to me. You don't give a shit about undocumented people. That's really how it feels. And if the Democratic establishment was wise, they would understand, one, we're not going to keep voting for Kamala Harris's and Hillary Clinton's and other establishment Democrats that don't want to do anything about these big issues that people are consistently seeing on the internet. Sorry, my cat is in the way. Like they're not going to do it because it's like, again, people have been bombing these areas and people have been deporting immigrants and people have been putting children in cages for years. For years. One of the biggest proponents of which was Barack Obama. However, the way that activists and also effective parties have effectively used social media to put a visual to these conversations has been unprecedented. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing is that, like, oh, yeah, I knew that, drone strikes were occurring before, but now I'm looking at beheaded children on my social media. I can't open Instagram without seeing somebody who I was following for cool Palestinian recipes being blown to bits. That's the difference. People see it now. And you can't keep doing all of this smoke and mirrors to act like it's not happening. So if they were wise, they would go ahead and figure that shit out. I don't know. The final thing I want to talk about today is the thing that we all saw coming, right? I don't think there's a single person for real on this earth that didn't see this coming. But since I've been away, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, nightmare blunt rotation. They're done. Their little soiree, their little uh case of rendezvous is over. And is that interesting? Not really to me. I hate both of them very deeply, especially Elon Musk. If you ever see me alone in a room with Elon Musk and there's no cameras around or no people to protect him, he's not leaving that room. Mm-mm. Even if I don't leave that room, he's not leaving that room, and I'm making sure of it. Okay? I hate that man so much. I told y'all I've hated that man for so long. I know there are liberals that were like really infatuated with him before, and they're like, all of a sudden, he's just this madman. He has always been that madman. And it started with when he called that man that helped those I want to say it was in Thailand. Was it in Thailand? Hold on. Yes. Yes. When he called that British caver who helped those Thai schoolboys out of that cave a pedophile. And he won his defamation case. Elon Musk won it. But it's just like, why did he call what it was out of nowhere. This man that has millions upon millions of followers on Twitter just gets on Twitter and it calls him a pedophile. For what? Saving children? Uh the pot calling the kettle pedophile. What is wrong with you? But anyway, that's relevant to what I want to talk about. Bro, the most interesting part of the actual dissolution of the relationship is not surprising. Um if you haven't kept up with Elon Musk prior to 2023, Elon Musk has always been a huge critic of Donald Trump. This whole right-wing descent that he's been on is very, very recent, and I think it has to do with his acquisition of Twitter and his radicalization into a lot of the white genocide conspiracy theories that have to do with, him being South African, his family having ties to the apartheid. So, all that being said, that is not surprising that they are no longer, buddy buddy. What's shocking to me is that Elon Musk of all people decided to get on the internet. The tweet has now been deleted, but it was a tweet that basically said, and the thing about Elon Musk is that he is so desperate for other people's attention and admiration. He can't just be rich. He needs everybody to love him and like him, and he is one of the least likable people on the planet. I hate him. I really, really do. I really do. I've never hated somebody that I've never met this much. That's not true. But I would say that Elon Musk probably tops the list of people that I've never met that I absolutely cannot stand. But his tweet basically said, time to drop the big bomb, because, he has to hype it up for everybody. Ooh, everybody, I'm going to drop something juicy. Um, Donald Trump is on the Epstein list, and that's the reason why the Epstein client list hasn't been declassified. Yeah, and the sky is blue. What? I thought everyone knew that. So when everybody started reacting and being like, can you believe Elon Musk said, we know there's video. What? There is video of Donald Trump with Epstein. Hours of it. We didn't need anything to be declassified in order to know that. Is this thing on? Like what do we already knew that. I thought I was under the impression that everybody knew that. But people on the right are acting like this is new information. We knew this. There are several people that are affiliates of Jeffrey Epstein that have been now founded to not be affiliated because, oh, I don't know. Yeah, they were friends and like Elon Musk. they were friends, and Epstein referred to him as like closer than a brother. And like, yes, they were very close to Ghislaine Maxwell and all these other things. But, it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. What? What? Speaking back to what I was talking about around the ICE raids, about how it's very like the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are indistinguishable. Clinton's also on that list. So it follows then that there are prominent Republicans on this list. There are prominent Democrats on this list. They don't want this list to come out. That is what they have in common. Rich people do not want other rich people to be scrutinized to this level, because at the end of the day, yes, they have a lot of money. Yes, they have a lot of power, but they can't overpower a public narrative. And if the narrative is out there that this person is associated with Jeffrey Epstein, then it's over, It just kills me because what recently came out is that the DOJ has found that there is no client list, and that Jeffrey Epstein did indeed kill himself after so much posturing and baiting around the conspiracy theory that Jeffrey Epstein was killed via homicide, and that this list of all this powerful cabal of pedophiles is going to be released. That now that because some of the conspiracy theorists, specifically I'm thinking of like Cash Patel, now that he's the head of the FBI, he was barking and chirping and talking about how, yeah, there's a list, and it's going to be released, and it's going to be blah, 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 blah. And now that he's in the position of power, he's like, guys, there never was a list. Nobody believes you. Nobody believes you whatsoever. But people with brains that have been operating for more than 72 hours, we understand this to mean that some powerful people are either on this list or associated with it. And because of that, there has to be a cover up, or there has to be a story, or there has to be a conversation around it that doesn't implicate the literal sitting president of the United States, one of the only living former presidents, and a bunch of other powerful people that I'm not going to name right now. But I do know their names. That would be the logical thing. Is like, okay, they're engaging in a cover up. But the way that I have seen these MAGA people turning themselves in knots to try and come up with something else, like Alex Jones, the host of, or the former host of InfoWars, is like, I have no idea how the deep state got Donald Trump to be a part of this. Donald Trump is the deep state. What? Like, I'm not even caping for Trump or for Alex Jones or for conspiracy theorists on the right. I don't even think it's like a specific party that believes that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. I just think that's what people with logical brains would believe. Like, even if you want to believe, okay, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, the idea that he didn't is plausible in the minds of anybody that understands how the political system works. You have these powerful ass people, and you find out that there might be a dossier of information on them that basically proves that they are pedophiles, or at the very least were procuring young women or young girls for sexual favors, if not for themselves, for their powerful rulers or powerful bosses. Don't you think it would logically follow then that somebody would want to cover that up? The Department of Justice is basically like, no, and you're a nut for thinking otherwise. I don't know. But I do think it's nutty that people on the right wing, instead of accepting the fact that they might be wrong and, maybe we shouldn't idolize this politician, instead of going through that process and undoing, because human beings don't like being wrong. Human beings like to be right. And when they have a set belief, they want to keep that belief. But it's like, we have videos of him with Epstein. Elon Musk has a disagreement with Trump, and then all of a sudden he's tweeting out that he's on the Epstein list, and all of a sudden Donald Trump's own administration is saying that there's nothing to be seen here, logic would follow that there's a cover up, but that would be damaging to your side. So instead, we're going to create a situation where the evil I never say that word right. The evil cabal, not cumball, cumball. Evil cabal of pedophiles is all Democrats, and somehow they have mind controlled either the people around Donald Trump or like I don't anyway, we all knew he was friends with Epstein. He's already said that. His whole thing is that he wants to distance himself from how close he was with Epstein. Just like Prince Andrew did the same thing. Is it not just easier to believe that someone that rich and that famous and that much power who's liable for rape in a civil sense, allegedly, let me throw that in there so nobody can get to me, I'm going to law school. I know what's up. Is it not more feasible that somebody that has that track record and also has allegedly 34 counts against them would be involved in such nonsense? No, it makes more sense to you that the cabal got to him and they told him that he has to do this and blah, 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 blah. Like, no, nobody believes you. Nobody believes you. The American government is already a shit show. No, like people already weren't listening, but this really takes the cake. This is the moment. This is the moment where people go, oh, y'all were full of shit this whole time. And I think that people on the left already knew that, but it's very funny to watch these people who, I think what takes you from being a right-winger to being a cult member is when you cannot accept that somebody who's on your side could be incorrect, or be bad or be whatever. To see a lot of these MAGA cultists suddenly have so little to say about the fact that their leader is possibly a part of the crime that they've been wanting to be investigated for years and years now. That's priceless. You can't get anything else like it. It's entertainment heaven, you know what I mean? But yeah, so Elon Musk and Trump are no more. It's like finding out that the couple that you really, really, really hated finally broke up, and now the girl is on her Instagram story being like, that's why, you never brushed your teeth, and, you only showered twice a week, and, you would go to bed, I don't know, masturbating to furry porn. And it's like, not that there's anything wrong with furries. I don't know why that was the first thing to come to my head, but like, you hear all of it and you're like, right. But you were with him. But you gave him $250,000 to become the president so that you could have absolute power, but you were fully aware that he was associated with a pedophile, allegedly, and also allegedly that your brother was also associated with said pedophile prior to his death. Oh, and that you overtook one of the biggest social media platforms of all time in order to sway the election to the bidding of said person associated with said pedophile, allegedly. Right. You knew all that and you still stayed with him. That's okay. Whatever. Whatever. I'm going to wrap up here, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope to have more frequent and consistent updates. I think this editing style is going to be a lot easier if my storage will be able to handle it. But as always, music is by Mateus, video by me, logo by Look at 1106. Thank y'all so much for supporting and tuning in, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.